I do think Donald Trump is serious about trying to acquire additional territory for the United States. The game that Donald Trump is playing is a chess game where he trades off with the traditional Washington power players to get out of Ukraine so that he can offer them something else, such as Greenland or whatever the case may be. The United States can do anything that it wants, and that everyone else has to do whatever the United States wants. And because there are other great powers that are growing, that dynamic does not exist anymore, because countries such as China and Russia and India and other countries are growing to become world powers. Trump administration sees Europe as a burden. He doesn't want to fight. I think he wants to try to outsmart or outbully his opponent. Elon Musk, sooner rather than later, will begin to be a political liability for Donald Trump. My fear is that the Trump administration comes in and tries to mitigate the debt on the backs of the working class.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of In Depth. I'm Ananya Datta for Hindustan Times, and today we are going to decode how the next 4 years in the United States are going to look like under Donald Trump and what it means for the world. I have political analyst Garland Nixon joining me today from Maryland, United States. He's a radio talk show host and has a candid way of breaking down politics. Mr. Nixon, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Now, right off the bat, let me first get your reaction to the comments Trump has been making towards taking control of Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. What do you think of that?
Not surprising with Donald Trump. He does make, bombastic comments that are often over the top. However, I do think that these particular comments align with his foreign policy. I think Donald Trump sees the future of the U.S. as taking a loss in Ukraine. I think he's going to, of course, try to probably successfully dump that loss on Joe Biden. But I think Donald Trump wants a win after that, in that something that he can say that the United States has gotten a win under him. I think particularly with Panama, you see that as a very important artery for international trade. And at a time when some members of the ruling elite of the U.S. See great power competition, I think control of a major shipping artery would be very important. So I think Donald Trump wants to basically make some kind of a power correction for the clear and obvious loss that may be viewed by a lot of people in regarding the Ukraine conflict.
So then that begs the question, should we take Trump's threat seriously?
Yes, but remember something about Donald Trump. The way Donald Trump negotiates is he always starts off with the most extreme perspective, the most extreme beginning for any bargaining. So I think he starts off with threats, threatening countries, threatening to use military force, etc. Therefore, when he lowers the threshold of threats to negotiation, it makes him seem more reasonable. So this seems to me to be traditional Donald Trump. Start with some kind of an over-the-top threat and then back it down to seem reasonable when he negotiates. But I do think Donald Trump is serious about trying to acquire additional territory for the United States. Not that the other countries will be thrilled with accommodating him, but I think he's serious in his endeavor to do these things.
I was also wondering, do you think Trump using these hawkish statements, is that a way to send a message to the real enemies, that's Russia, China, and North Korea?
Well, I think being outside the United States, you have to understand that when the leaders of the United States talk, they're always speaking internally. They're talking to the people of the United States. They're talking to politicians and power players in the United States. So I do believe that to some extent, I think that under a Trump administration, a Trump administration sees Europe as a burden. And I think to some extent, they want to exit Europe. They see that as kind of a money hole that they've been throwing money in, and they want to exit Europe so that they can, in one way or another, confront other powers and attempt to regrow the U.S. power that is definitely weakening. So I think what Donald Trump, the world is talking about the U.S. as a weaker entity that is losing domination. And I think Donald Trump is trying to figure out a way to regain the world power of the U.S. But he's talking internally. But quite honestly, I don't see how the U.S. can regain that power, because countries such as China and Russia and India and other countries are growing to become world powers. They aspire to be world powers, and they have the mechanisms necessary to grow in that direction.
Right. Speaking of other countries, Mr. Nixon, France and Germany were the first in Europe to react, and they want actually Trump to not go forward with this plan. So let me put this in perspective as to why I'm asking this question. America's northern ally, Canada, is out. France and Germany are realizing that they need to put their national interests ahead of American interests. South Asia is playing a balancing act with the United States and China, and Africa is building bridges with Russia. Trump, of course, wants to play power politics, but what I want to ask you is, who else is in this game?
Not so much. I don't think he's trying to send a message to them. I think he's trying to send a message to the American people. I also think this, and this is critical to understand, Donald Trump's negotiating, particularly when it comes to Ukraine, he's not going to be negotiating with the Russians. And here's what I mean. We already know what the Russians would require to get a deal, and Donald Trump knows it. And he knows that internally that there is a Washington foreign policy consensus that would quickly reject that. And I think part of the game that Donald Trump is playing is a chess game where he trades off with the traditional Washington power players to get out of Ukraine so that he can offer them something else, such as Greenland or whatever the case may be. I think that's part of the game that Donald Trump's playing, because he knows it's going to be difficult to deal with the traditional military institutions and power institutions in Washington, D.C. to get out of Ukraine, which I think he definitely wants to do.
The United States was one of the first to blame Russia for invading Ukraine, saying one cannot redraw boundaries in the 21st century. Isn't Washington being hypocritical now? Do you think the world is able to see through its charades?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that the United States will be legitimately criticized for hypocrisy. I think there's a lot of that going on right now around the world, that a lot of countries are looking at the actions of the United States, or listening to the rhetoric of the United States, and in particular to Anthony Blinken's use of a term called the rules-based international order, which many people in the world have simply interpreted to mean that the United States can do anything that it wants, and that everyone else has to do whatever the United States wants. And because there are other great powers that are growing, that dynamic does not exist anymore. And I think the leadership of the United States are the only ones in the world that don't recognize that that dynamic of domination does not exist anymore.
Right. Mr. Nixon, you earlier touched upon foreign policy. Talk to us a little about what we should expect from Trump's foreign policy.
Certainly. I think Donald Trump, one of the things about Donald Trump is I think he is less likely to engage in confrontations with great powers and with nuclear powers, military confrontations. I think Donald Trump is more likely, he doesn't want to fight the other big powers. I think he may be the type that may want to bully smaller countries such as Cuba or Venezuela or countries like that, but he doesn't want to engage in very dangerous conflicts. He's spoken of the dangers of World War III. He's spoken of the dangers of nuclear war. So I think he recognizes that, but I still think he has some of the Washington foreign policy consensus in him, enough that he's still going to try to push around some other countries in a way that won't cause too much of a chance of a major war. I think Donald Trump also is not inclined to go to war, but he is inclined to use other means, such as economic means, sanctions, etc., to try and get his policies enacted the way he wants around the world. So I think he's not as much of a there's a term that's used in Washington, D.C. also oftentimes, and they call them the knuckle draggers, the people who are just want to go out and have a fight. I don't think Donald Trump, from the perspective of Washington, D.C., is one of the knuckle draggers. He doesn't want to fight. I think he wants to try to outsmart or outbully his opponent. So I think you're going to see different. You're not going to see Donald Trump sending nuclear submarines to South Korea like the Biden administration would do. Those kinds of things he's less inclined to do.
All right, let's talk about Elon Musk a little. He's the richest man in the world. He's the owner of X, a social media giant that he claims is a news platform, and he's part of Trump's administration now. So that's financial, media, and political power. Do you think power might go unchecked in the months to come for Elon Musk?
I think Elon Musk is in a real difficult position right now for himself because while he's maybe the richest man in the world, that doesn't necessarily mean the most powerful man in the world. And so now he has acquired political power by his association with the president of the United States, and I think he doesn't really know how to use that in a responsible manner. And so I think he's just striking out at all of his enemies now. I think he feels very, very powerful and he's trying to utilize that. I think at some point, he's going to run into conflict with Donald Trump because that could be a problem for Donald Trump, who likes to be more in charge of things and make his own decisions. I think that Elon Musk also is going to run into a significant problem with Donald Trump supporters. I think Elon Musk, like many others, believe that Donald Trump supporters will just love Donald Trump and support him no matter what, when that's not a reality anymore. In fact, I know many people in minority communities, in the Black community, in the Latino community, et cetera, that voted for Donald Trump that don't even like Donald Trump. But they voted for him because the Biden administration was so bad in their opinion, they would, as the old saying goes, any place is better than here. So I think Donald Trump, they will have what we would call a short lease with Donald Trump. If he goes in a direction that a lot of people who voted for him don't like, they will turn on him in a hurry and push back. I think we're already starting to see that over the H-1B visa program. But whatever the case may be, I think Elon Musk, sooner rather than later, will begin to be a political liability for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will have to figure out how to deal with it. Elon Musk apparently does not understand how to handle great power, and I think he's misusing his power, and it's going to cause him problems.
It's interesting you say that. Say there is a fallout between Trump and Musk. How messy will that look?
Well, actually, I think that Donald Trump will have to manage that conflict. I think he needs Elon Musk for a number of reasons, and certainly Elon Musk needs him. So there is some mutuality, there is a symbiosis there. So I think if Donald Trump has a problem with Elon Musk, and it probably won't be difficult for him to work things out. Elon Musk understands that the Maga movement is a Trump movement at heart. I think Elon Musk understands that Donald Trump defeated the entire Republican Party and the Democratic Party and the entire media and the institutions here in the United States. I mean, it's really amazing the power move that Donald Trump has been able to make. And I think Elon Musk at some point is going to be forced to turn down the volume, or Donald Trump will have to distance himself from Elon Musk, because Trump has some things he wants to do and he can't get them done if he's constantly cleaning up after Elon Musk. Yes, well, Donald Trump certainly recognizes the economic power of Elon Musk and, of course, the power of social media. Elon Musk has one of the most powerful social media platforms on earth, and he can very well take actions that would be detrimental to Donald Trump, or he can help him a lot. So I think he understands that Elon Musk's economic power and Elon Musk's social media power are a tremendous asset that he can wield. And so I think he will ensure that even if he has to turn down the volume, shall we say, on Elon Musk, that he will do it in a way that doesn't create an enemy, because he needs Elon Musk and Elon Musk needs him. And at some point, I think they're going to have that talk, because Elon Musk, if he continues in the way that he's going, having online fights with leaders of various countries, it will get in the way of Donald Trump's foreign policy at some point.
All right, Mr. Nixon, before I wrap up, I want to ask you one last question. Is there anything you're worried about with America under Donald Trump for the next 4 years?
Well, the thing is, I don't think my worries over the next 4 years change under Donald Trump as much. I think I'll be honest with you. I have less of a concern about a nuclear conflict or a great power conflict under Donald Trump than I do under the Biden administration. But certainly, I think there are concerns about domestic issues here. Donald Trump is claiming that he's going to do massive immigrant, massive, immigration moves to get rid of a lot of people and things like that. And those things could have very real economic ramifications. A lot of the people, the immigrants here, do a lot of very necessary jobs. So I think there are some actions that Donald Trump could take economically that would be very damaging to the country. He has people around him, such again as Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who want to fire a lot of employees and get rid of a lot of federal employees. And these, of course, are working people with jobs, and I certainly don't want to see that happen. So I guess I would have to say this. My biggest concern is that the Trump administration comes in and says our country is in a difficult financial position because of our debt. And of course, our debt was created by spending so much on military and giving tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations. My fear is that the Trump administration comes in and tries to mitigate the debt on the backs of the working class. And they say, now we have to cut back spending, but rather than cut back on all of the things that they've done for the wealthy and the powerful, they cut back on the few social safety net items that go to the poor and the working class. So that's my fear.
All right. I'll have to leave it with that. Mr. Nixon, always a pleasure speaking to you. I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you very much.